Hello, sir.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening from UK to you.
Thanks for joining us today, Ambassador Joseph Ehigiamusoy.
It's a
Thanks for
pleasure to be here.
Ambassador Joseph Ehigiamusoy is the Edo State Cultural Ambassador to the UK, radio, television broadcaster, content developer, and media consultant, and also a convener of a diaspora Edo indigenes in the UK. Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks so much. I want to say a big thank you to you and well done for all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. So today we are here to discuss about the crisis in Nigeria, the End SARS protest that started with the Nigerian youth protesting against police brutality in Nigeria. So gradually, the protest is changing dimensions. Militants and hoodlums are taking over the protest. So right now, one of the demands of the youth is restructuring of Nigeria. The question is whether or not Nigeria needs restructuring. What are the major problems of Nigeria? So,
Uh, th- Thank you so much for that wonderful question. It looks like an embodiment of
mm,
a whole lot,
mm,
that plagues our very dear nation,
mm,
Nigeria. First and foremost, when you asked if Nigeria needs restructuring, from the way things have been perpetrated in the country pre-independence, through to 1960 on to where we are now, 60 years after what people claim to be independent. But I find that very questionable whether we're really independent, because in my simple opinion, a
mm,
country that isn't economically independent is still very, very dependent, which means that whatever we're doing, we're dependent on other nations to survive, which remains a very big shame, that a 60-year nation, questionably claiming independent, we're still where we are, stagnated, no progression. Uh, is a case of what Fela says, Bob Marley says, one step forward, two steps. I won't even say this is two steps. I said this is like three, four, 5 steps backwards,
mm.
because a lot of things are not just going right for the country. And there are so many things that accounts for that, which is one of the reasons a lot of people have clamored for the need to have a rethink and revisit the structure of the place called Nigeria. This was the brainchild of the former president, His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, when he constituted the National Confab, to discuss some of these plaguing questions we just have on our table. What are the problems with the country, and how can we address them? First and foremost is to identify and agree and accept that there is a problem, because a
Yes.
problem known, they say, is halved. So that being the case, it was important that we had that national confab. Unfortunately, we had some very negative elements in the country that did not see the need for it, and they have their ulterior motive, why they believe that confab was not necessary. And one of the outcomes of that was to restructure this country we call Nigeria of ours. I'm a proud, loving Nigerian. I love my country. I love my people. But it's unfortunate that, it causes my heart to bleed each time I think about the things about Nigeria and Nigerians because of how things have been. Now, let's look at it in a nutshell. The National Confab, when they were constituted and they come out with a report and recommendation as to how to move the country forward. So that would enable me to answer the first
Mm.
part of the question: does Nigeria need restructuring? I
But
want to
what are the problems, sir? First, let's diagnose the problems of
okay,
Nigeria. Then, before we shift to the restructuring of Nigeria. So, without
okay,
knowing the problems, how can we restructure the country?
okay. Let's follow it on your
Mm, mm, yeah.
identifying what the problems are.
Yes.
First and foremost, we have this country we call Nigeria that was formed on a marriage of inconvenience. Okay? It was a brainchild of somebody and his girlfriend or wife or whatever over a cup of tea. They thought, they thought it necessary that the best way for things to happen was to bring the peoples of the northern and southern protectorate of Nigeria together with Lagos as a colony, and then eventually just called the space Nigeria. All right. And these are people that had fundamental differences. They had fundamental ways of lives, which does not, in any way, there is no semblance, there is no correlation. You just bring them together and lump them all together. So that agreement was never there. So, like, that's why I said it's been a case of a marriage of inconvenience. These people are like strange bedfellows when they were all forced to come together to form a place that we call Nigeria. And now, come 1960, here we were with a transition after some of our leaders have fought tirelessly for the independence of the country. And they say, okay, this is what you're agitating for. This is what you want, independence. Okay, we give this independence to you. And before that was done, look at the three regions of the country before the Midwest came in 1963, which, by the way, was the only region that was that is legally formed in Nigeria. So we had the North, South, and the Western regions of Nigeria. They have all these people, they were not in agreement. But one way or the other, following the Aburi Accord, following okay, let's not. That's not what I mean to bring in. Following negotiations, the three of them, Azikiwe, Awolowo, and Tafawa Balewa, so they all found a way to come together to say, okay, they accept it. But in all of that, there was a bequeath from the British colonial masters to the people of the North, the likes of Tafawa Balewa, for instance. So the issue of the governance of Nigeria was like a birthright. Something inculcated into the brain. This is your own thing as far as this Nigeria space is concerned. Okay, Awolowo, the Nnamdi Azikiwe for the eastern part of Nigeria was there by him on his own. The East believe people who agitate for money and trade and all of that. So that was there for them. And then Awolowo also had issues, had an interest in education. So that's how the country was fractioned and divided for these three regions. Now, each time there is issue about the state of the nation in terms of governance, you find the North do not want to relinquish that for anything because they strongly believe and they hold on to what was given to them by way of belief that they are in charge and the governance of Nigeria. So that has been the case over time. Now, a country where you have these so many people, even divided along tribal lines, it's very unfair to have a domination of one part to be there saddled, seated in the saddle of government, to be presidents or heads of states and all what have you. So this has been the case over the years, and this is one of the problems that I feel has affected Nigeria to where we are today. Now, if we want to move on from there, each time we have successive leaders, there are issues about corruption. There are issues about corruption that has eaten very, very deep into the fabrics of our society. A country is so corrupt and that that they practice corruption with such degree of impunity. There's no way it's going to move forward. There's no way they're going to move forward. Okay. Now I want to look at poverty as another big problem in the country.
So the first one is the colonial people, the amalgamation of Nigeria, Then the second one would be corruption in the system as a whole. Then the third one would be poverty.
Poverty.
But corruption is also at the root of this poverty in the country.
It is. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, corruption has eaten so deep into the fabrics of our society that it is now perpetrated in such a way that there is so high degree of impunity in perpetrating the issues of corruption, and nothing is being done about it. And there's no way we can progress if this is not dealt with. And just before I move on to poverty in that case, I want to, you did say we identify the problems first before we start talking
Yes,
about
we
the
identify
solution.
the
So I'm
problems
also
of Nigeria. Yes, before we discuss about restructuring, because we have to
okay.
identify the problems first. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now we have the issues of the strange bedfellows brought upon us by the colonial masters, the amalgamation, and the formation of the place called Nigeria.
Nigeria.
There were strange people all lumped together. It's like something forced upon us. That's one. The second is the issue of corruption. Corruption is affecting us so deeply and so badly that the nation is not moving forward. We are a nation so blessed with so much and so many resources, yet we are so impoverished that so much
Yeah.
that we have been described quite recently as the poverty capital of the world. So that is unfair, brought about by corruption. The third one I want to touch on is poverty. Okay, which I just mentioned. Poverty is affecting Nigerians. We're at a state now after 60 years where the average Nigerian is living on the equivalent of about 50 pence United Kingdom currency. That is not acceptable in the current place that we are in Nigeria, in the 21st century. A country at the time with a huge amount of oil that we have, we're about the third best nation, oil producing nation in the world.
What? Yeah.
We had years where we had oil boom. A lot of money was generated from that. And up to today, nothing has been done with all of that. Nigeria is still very, very impoverished. That is not acceptable. So that's the issue of poverty. And the people are there, about 70% of the youth, of the population are the youths. And we're about 200 million people and still counting today. About 70% of that population are the younger generation. And there is a huge unemployment that's facing the young ones in the country. If you say the youths are the leaders of tomorrow, and the youths are so impoverished, the youths, they struggle to go through the walls of education from primary through secondary through tertiary institutions, do their National Youth Service Corps, and they wallow the street without jobs. How do you expect such a country to grow? So there's so much poverty. And this is happening in a situation where we have, the National Assembly of the country, okay, all earning fabulous sums of money at the expense of the mass majority of the Nigerian people. That is not acceptable. The NSAS slogan, is just one amongst many things I believe youth want to be changed in the country. But we're still along the lines of identifying the problems of this country. Like I mentioned, these loans that are taken are not being judiciously used. First and foremost, we have infrastructures that are not being developed.
Yes.
Whatever we have are not being maintained. They're not serving the needs of the people. 60 years after independence, we do not have power. We don't have electricity. 60 years after independence, we do not have pipe-borne water. Everyone is having to dig their borehole. 60 years after independence, we have dilapidated road structure that are death traps causing mayhems and deaths on our roads, in every part of the country. 60 years after independence, we do not have a good health structure. 60 years after independence, you find people living below the poverty level. That's so much so that the country is ascribed as the poverty capital of the world. So what then are we talking about? Talking about, you need
we don't have it.
security.
You need security,
Yeah. Those are quite vital elements for any country's developmental process. And these are also basic amenities that we're lacking in the country. That said, along those lines of insecurity, now we have terrorism, terrorist attacks in Nigeria. And we have issues about the Fulani headsmen ravaging and terrorizing people all around the country. We have Boko Haram, So, and you have a government that's not there doing anything. These are parts of the problem still. And the issue, there's another issue along the line of, poor educational system in the country. Sometimes it beats my imagination. And this is as a result of, a very bad leadership at the top who do not even have a knack or have understanding of how the importance of education, so to speak. That is not there. This again is another part of the problems that we have in the country. And talking about child mortality as well, I want to make a mention of that. High children or child mortality rate in the country is another problem in our country as a result of poor health infrastructure that we don't
Yes.
have in Nigeria.
As a result
So
of the healthcare system, lack of
that's
healthcare
correct.
system, yeah, or
So
poor
when
healthcare system in the country.
yes, when you put all this together, you can find the reason why Nigeria is not even sitting, let alone crawling, after 60 years, where we should be running as athletes in Olympics. But we have not even learned to sit yet, let alone crawling, because of these whole problems that I have enumerated. The list can be endless, so there's still many more. But these are key areas that we have failed to address as a nation that has continuously positioned us where we are, that nothing has moved forward. So if that's enough, some of the problems that I have listed,
Yes.
here they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Wasn't a few weeks ago, I found one investor here in Canada was trying to introduce Nigeria. But the first question was, is there any security in Nigeria? Because they have been watching what is going on in the country with the Boko Haram kidnapping, foreign workers and everything. So I was not able to guarantee him of security. So how can investors invest in Nigeria to boost the employment rate when security is not there, electricity is not there? So Nigeria, we have a lot of problems with the Nigeria, but we just have to identify the major ones right now. Then restructuring of the country.
Yeah, before we talk about restructuring, which is a very key factor in moving the nation from this level to the next level, I also want to add that we're also faced with the problem of tribalism. Okay, never in the history of Nigeria has Nigeria and Nigerians suffered nepotistic practice in government at the federal level like we have today. For me, I think that is another big problem that we have in the country, because that has enabled having square pegs in round holes in government. What does that do? That helps to stagnate. It helps to pull back. It helps to deliver poor and negative results, from the needed work that needs to be done to develop and move the country forward. Look at all the key positions in the country at the moment. They are carried out along the lines of tribalism. Tribalism. Okay, we have a federal government that's so deeply soaked in nepotistic practice. This is not right. This is not correct. This is a nation where you have over 300, tribes, for instance, right? And you have a domination from one particular tribe at the expense of all others. Maybe there would be some degree of acceptance if they were delivering, if the country was developing, if these people were performing at their optimum for the good of the country. Perhaps there will not be uproar, but that is not the case. Nigeria is like a sick baby as we speak. We're not moving forward. We are moving backward. There's no development in any sector of the economy. When you find people who have perchance have found themselves in the corridor of power defending this failed government in the country, it just saddens my heart. It causes my heart to bleed, because we're not being honest to ourselves.
How can a country be peaceful when the important positions are concentrated in the hands of a certain tribal group? in the country. A country with almost 300 tribal groups.
I think we should also be able to narrow it down. When we say the North, yes, the North, but these powers are a concentration in the hands of the Fulanese in Nigeria,
Okay.
the Hausas as well. Some of them are voting, some of them are upset, some of them are angry about what's happening. But we from the outside, we're quick to look at it as the North. Yes, it's a part of the North, but this is also being concentrated in the hands of the Fulanese in the North.
Mm.
And, this is coming at the expense of the Hausas, the Igbos, the Yorubas, the Edo people, and all of that part, the South, and all of that. So there's a a high degree of unfairness in an imbalance that is coming out from the federal
Yes.
government that is making a lot of people unhappy. For
Mm.
instance, if I'm at my best, look at Nigerians at nations all across the world. They are contributing immensely to the development structurally, economically, technically, scientifically. They are contributing in America, in Canada, in United Kingdom, in Australia, in Japan, in Asia. Nigerians are in top places contributing to the development of these countries. Yet we cannot do that in our own country because someone chooses to be nepotistic in the practice of government and the delivery of government, and doesn't care about whether the country grows or not. Okay, recently there was issues of Fulani invasion in Nigeria where they were even asked to come to Nigeria because Nigeria is their country. Borders open and they all invaded Nigeria and they are there. How can that be? And how does this help in the development of the country? It's so sad that we're having this on our table 60 years after a questionable acronym or status called independent nation.
Mm. Okay. Recently, over these years, we have some pressure groups in the country who are agitating for secession. And during this NSAS protest, these people came out saying that if we cannot coexist in peace and harmony in the country, it is better for us to just divide ourselves because it's getting too much now. Some of them are saying, no, 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 we should not divide. But what Nigeria needs right now is restructuring. Is it restructuring or secession will solve this problem that we are facing in the country? So
Thank you
some
very
people, some people are saying restructuring that secession will not solve any problem because it's still the same people. Even though we divide the country into 7 parts, they are still the same politicians. When you look at corruption in Nigeria, not only the Northerners or the Easterners or the Westerners, corruption is equally distributed among the politicians across the country. So secession will not solve the problem, but restructuring.
Well, I thank you very much for that point made. You have partially thrown in an answer to the question that's been asked, whether Nigeria needs restructuring to survive and to put things right. I want to say that all the agitation that's happening are born out of one particular thing: bad governance. Those who are clamoring for secessionists
Mm.
is as a result of bad
Good
governance.
governance. Yeah.
Those who are clamoring that the country needs restructuring is traceable to the fact that we have bad governance or worst governance. All right? As a young man growing up, I've said this in a couple of places. I subscribed to the notion that Nigeria was a complex state, very difficult to govern. But and also believe that for Nigeria to change for good, we needed a revolution, bloody revolution for things to
Oh,
change. But as I grew up over time, I realized that yes, we may need revolution, but we do not need bloody revolution. We need educational, revolution.
vision.
We need a reorientation of our mindset to understand who we are, where we are. Okay, and also the issue about um, the issue about how Nigeria has been a complex state, I now realize that Nigerians are not complex at all. Nigerians are very lovely people, simple to deal with, hospitable, loving, entrepreneurial, dynamic set of people. It doesn't surprise me years ago when Nigeria was described as the most happiest nation and the happiest people on earth. We were proud of that. What leads to that is as a result of people, like Fela said, we suffer and we smile, irrespective. But now,
Suffering and smiling.
yes, what I feel about that is Nigerians just need a government that can provide, that can perform the roles of governance to the Nigerian people.
Exactly.
A government that can deliver on the deliverables of good governance and deliver the dividends of democracy. Now that we say this is what we are practicing, democracy, the people who instituted democracy, they are struggling with it. But that's a matter for another day to say democracy is not for us. But here we are. Why can't we make the best out of where we are and what we are? Okay. Now, what I believe needs to be done along those lines is if we have a government that is prepared to deliver on good governance, provide the basic needs of life, food, shelter, job, the basic infrastructure, electricity, water. We have good roads, good healthcare system. Who says Nigeria, as blessed and rich as we are, we cannot practice a welfare system, a welfare state system where people who are, if unemployed, can enjoy the benefit of a welfare structure in the country? Who says we do not have the resources to do that? Because we don't have the leaders who have the brain, the mindset to think along those lines, because all they're interested in is just to amass much wealth for themselves that themselves and their fourth generation cannot even consume. And yet you have people languishing in poverty in your neighborhood, all around the streets in the country. So a situation where all of that is lacking, then you find Nigerians agitating for so many things. That is what is responsible for what we're talking about. If we have a government that's delivering the basics, Nigerians, you have a job, you wake up on Monday through Friday or whatever it is, you go to work, at the end of the month, you earn your good pay, enough that can take you home and take care of your family. We will not be agitating for anything. We will not be crying for restructuring. We will not be agitating for secession. They will just go and live their normal lives and cohabit well. But the lack of that is what is making everybody to stand up and be agitating for XYZ. Oh, let Nigeria break. Let everybody go to their own different parts. And like you mentioned earlier on, that can happen possibly, but you find some who probably will also say they are disadvantaged against the other because they do not have enough resources to live on. Okay, that brings me to the national confab that was constituted by.
Yes. Yeah, I have one question there. Some
Okay.
people are also arguing that since independence of Nigeria, we have never had one perfect president or politician in the country. They are all corrupt. So how can we get that politician or a leader that will restructure Nigeria for us? When we blame the politicians, who are the politicians? Are they not the products of Nigeria? So when we said restructuring Nigeria should start from family, the school system, the way we raise our children, because the politicians that we are blaming every day, they are all products of Nigeria. So why are we expecting these people that 60 years we have never had any good politician in the country? How can we produce that politician that will be a messiah? That will be a messiah right now, of which we are not producing a messiah. So if we have to tackle corruption in Nigeria, we have to change our mindsets. Our mindset, the way we raise our children in a corrupt. I'm not saying that there's corruption everywhere. In Canada, there's corruption, but the one of Nigeria is like a disease that can never be cured.
With high level of impunity.
Yes.
That was disgraceful in the Nigerian
Yeah.
sector. Now let me come back to
Mm,
proffering an answer to the question you made in terms of
mm,
how do we
mm.
find a politician, because the type of
Yeah.
politicians we have in the country, they are from the same source. They crisscross party from this to that.
Mm-hmm.
We're all the same Nigeria and the same society and all of
Mm,
that. I want to agree with you that yes, that is true. However, a lot of Nigerians who have political ambitions, a lot of Nigerians who have political desire. Remember the slogan that politics is a dirty game. It's unraveled so widely in our society. But I want to say that it is the way we play our politics in Nigeria that makes it a dirty game. This same politics is played in Europe, it's played in the Americas, it's played in Asia, it's played in Australia and all other parts of the world. This same politics is what they play. But what are we doing in Africa? Because of the way we play our politics, that's what makes it dirty. And also, we have seen politics as a business in Africa, from Cape Town to Cairo, like we say. That's how we see politics. That's why you see it's a money bag politics that we play in Africa, in Nigeria. That's why it is the way it is, because anyone, if you don't have the money, you don't even want to step through the door to carry out your political ambition. And in the quest and desperate drive to achieve that, that's why you see people making themselves successful to what we call unquote godfathers who have the money. They are ready to sponsor you to go there so they can have access to the treasury of the state and of the nation. Okay. Now, what I want to say in terms
mm,
of proffering solution to
mm.
the question you asked is,
Yeah.
how do we discover, how do we find this
Yes.
one politician that is a good politician that can
Mm-hmm.
put things right? I want to say, my sister, that it is very, very possible. What I want to sound right here and now is that the average Nigerian youth, for instance, the average Nigerian diaspora that have been domiciled outside and seen things the way things are done properly, those people should find a way. Those people should be the one to find a way to bring themselves into play. Let's not give it all up, because the same crop of politicians, like you said, are the ones we have had from 1960 to
Sis-
date,
sis-
60 years
Yeah.
thereafter. We're still recycling and exchanging ourselves, okay, from one party to the other, and then sitting on, in power. Right? In a 21st century such as we are, we have people in government, in presidency, in National Assembly, that are so detached from the rudiments of governance, from the requirements of governance. There is one
Sir.
singular interest.
Sir.
There is one singular interest as a commonality across board, which is to amass money. They see it as a business. They see it as a place to make money. So, in terms of identifying and getting that person that
Mm,
will be a correct politician to come and put things right,
mm.
you and I,
In the
and
West.
as many of us who are
I.
at home with the right set of
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
that desire good governance,
Yeah.
that are strong willed to step into that space and make things right. They are the set of people that need to come together and occupy that place and bring about the needed change. Listen, power
Sir.
is not given. Just a
Okay.
minute. Power
Yeah.
is not given.
Mm,
Power is taken. If we continue to be armchair critics like we have been over the years, oh, bad government, corruption, it will continue unabated. It's not going to stop, and it's not going to change, except and until the right set of people put themselves forward, no matter what it takes, put themselves forward to try and rewrite the wrongs, position themselves, and bring about good governance. Talk about real change, not the kind of change that we've been experiencing, the mantra that brought the current government into state of affairs from 2015 to date. When we're talking about change now, we're talking about a real effective change. And who can bring that aboard? The current Nigerian youth and the current good Nigerians, wherever they are. We need to step up and step into the space and begin to walk the talk and bring about that change that we desire and make Nigeria great. It is still very, very possible. It's not late.
Okay, so some people were also saying that when you do the history, look at the backgrounds of Nigerian politicians, majority of them lived in the West before. Some of them studied in the West. Okay, but they are still the same. They say whenever they join the politics of Nigeria, they become part of the system. Many people are complaining about that. And it's true. When you look at the history of these politicians in Nigeria, you realize that a majority of them studied in the West. Some even lived in the West for years before they went to Nigeria, but they became part of the system. So when you were, proposing Nigerians in the diaspora, I was just thinking, oh, okay. I'm not sure if you have studied the history of some of the politicians in the country that
I
they
have.
lived,
I
yeah,
tell you,
they
there
lived
is
in
a
the West before.
yes, there is a
Yeah.
shining underlying difference
Mm,
that would define those who have made themselves and
mm.
made ways back home opportune to get into the system where they ought to make a difference, but failed to do so. What did they do? You can't beat them, you join them. That
Then
is one thing that must change. For
exactly.
the current crop of Nigerians that I see,
Mm.
look at what's happened in this current NSAS thing. For the very first time in the history of Nigeria, and since I was born, this is the first time we have found an element of unity to drive one common cause.
Was it
At
the
home,
answers
the
of
answers at home and diaspora. Listen, I have been in the system not by participating in it. I have been a witness to successive government in Nigeria from 1983 to 1993. The various riots and protests that we have had till very recently. The government back in 1987, I want to narrow that to the SAP riot, okay? Not even the June 12 riot, the SAP riot. When Babangida came and they said Nigeria needed to borrow a loan from the International Monetary Fund. Unknown to the average Nigerian, that loan had been acquired. The terms and conditions signed away. That was the beginning of the devaluation of the Nigerian naira that is never recovered from till tomorrow. But what did he do? He said no, he wants the Nigerian public to decide whether we need this loan or not. And that was what we popularly refer to the IMF debate. Okay? There was a debate, and the public generally wholeheartedly rejected the IMF loan. Babangida has already done it. He's taken it. He's signed for it. He could go back. And that was forced down our throat. And that is where we are till tomorrow. So what am I trying to say? People now storm the street with protest. The mechanism and the psyche that the Nigerian government have successively used for the Nigerian protester is to test the will of the people, which they have concluded does not exceed a maximum of 2 weeks. Why? Because they have succeeded in impoverishing the average Nigerian. Even if they succeed coercively, come out to protest for one thing or the other, really and truly, it does not exceed 1 week or the longest 2 weeks. That 2 weeks, the longest that was 2 weeks, was the recent petroleum riot under Goodluck Jonathan. Okay, when the petroleum tariff was increased. Now that is the longest serving protest we've had in Nigeria, and at the end of the day, everything could also collapsed. Now the difference between NSAS riot and those ones is this: we had Nigerians, the Nigerian majority, the Nigerian youth, all came out to end police brutality, to end police extortion, to end oppression, to end poverty, to end bad governance, and so many other things. Now, All of us keyed into it. The Nigerians at home and the Nigerians in diaspora all around the
All
world.
the world, yes, yeah.
This is what's made it different. What does that tell you? That tells you that the Nigerian people, predominantly the Nigerian youth, are arriving at that national stage and at the international stage to put things right.
Mm.
Let's
It's,
not be deceived.
mm,
Let's not be
yeah.
deceived that
For
they've organized to bring hoodlums to come and infiltrate the genuine mission of the average Nigerian to fight this menace, the police menace in our society. Let's not be let's not get it wrong that this whole thing is probably, oh yeah, like you mentioned just now, it seems to be over. The protest is all over. You see, anything that you do in life, it's always good to have evaluation. You know,
okay.
you must take a moment to have a look and
Mm,
evaluate what you're doing. Uh, Pointers were given to the
mm,
federal government for them to look into, but we all found it an insult that you ended SARS and then swapped it for SWAT,
SWAT, yeah.
okay, in
Mm,
a matter of 2 days. Does that not
mm.
tell you that there's something wrong up
Like,
there? And that you're taking the Nigerians for granted, that you are
yes,
insulting Nigerians both at home and diaspora. Nigerians are intelligent people.
it's like
Nigerians are
a
respected at home and abroad. You
it's like
cannot
a
afford to
old
do
one.
that.
It's like an old wine in a new bottle.
New wineskin, like
Yeah,
they say. You
yeah.
know, you cannot do that. And you can't say you did that and expect that you have
Mm,
answered one of the clarion calls
yes.
from the youth. That is not possible. And then you rolled out the tanks to massacre your people you're meant to protect. And then you come out to address the nation after a protracted wait, and there was no word about that. How disrespectful can that be? We are Nigerian people. We are Nigerians at home and abroad. You know, like I said before, show some respect to the Nigerian people. We deserve that respect. Don't insult our intelligence. You know, we need something to be right in the country. Nigeria is great, and there are so many things that can make Nigeria great. You know, God created Nigeria and made and blessed Nigeria with everything, all the resources for Nigeria to attain that greatness, devoid of one.
Okay.
Let's see.
Do you mean that the intervention of Nigerians in the diaspora will help to shape this NSAS protest? Because our protest here is not very active like the ones in Nigeria that the youth back then in Nigeria are mobilizing against the government. But in some cases, you know that the politicians in the country, they don't treat us seriously when we are protesting in the West or in diaspora. So we need the youth back home to protest, to continue with the protest. However, right now, with the situation of the country, hoodlums and militants are taking over the protest from the youth. Some people are saying, it's like the youth are not going back to the street, which means the goal of this protest has been defeated if they don't go back to the street. And going back to the street is another thing. Is there any security for them? People are saying there's no security. Why should they allow these youth to go out there to be exposed to hoodlums? According to what we saw the other day, that the government is paying some hoodlums to counter the legitimate protesters.
You
So,
know,
yeah.
you know what? You know, the situation or the protest at the moment, um, it should not be mistaken for weakness. It should not be mistaken for maybe the youth have given up their agitation and given up
Mm,
on their protest on the matters that they brought for the government. If anyone thinks to have mentioned it before in this program, it would be silly of anyone to think that way. Because anything you do, you want to take a moment and take a step back, have a review, and perhaps re-strategize. What I do not welcome is the fact that, you know, properties, infrastructures that we don't even have are being destroyed, and innocent people are becoming victims of this whole thing. That is not the way forward. But that said, you see, what has also contributed to the level of success and widespread of these NSAS protests is the fact that Nigerians, as patient and tolerant as we are, I believe maybe the most patient and tolerant people in the world, we have not had it up to here. Okay? The issues of bad governance, the issues of corruption, the issues of oppression, the issues of poverty, the issues of joblessness, the issues of mortality rates in our hospitals and in our societies. We've had everything up here. Lack of power, lack of water, lack of good roads.
Yeah.
Okay, these are additions to issues of the police brutality and NSAS thing that we talked about, which has amounted to a number of conditions that have been laid on the doormat of the federal government to address in the country to put things right. Okay, that those things have not been looked into, are not being addressed adequately, and you expect the Nigerian people, predominantly the youths at home and diaspora, to that the whole thing is fizzled out as far as the protest is concerned. I think we should have a rethink.
Okay, a few days ago, I interviewed the security advisor to the governor of Edo State. He said the major issue of Nigeria can be resolved if they introduce this system of decentralization. Decentralization that will give power to states to manage their own internal affairs, unlike the federal system whereby power lies in the hands of the federal government. But in this case, it will relinquish power to the states. So do you think that will help in this process of restructuring?
Well, as a matter of structure for our program, I think this glides into the aspect of the restructuring. Now we have identified those problems, which are not far from some of those things and the ones you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So, in terms of looking at the restructuring element of our program for today, I want to agree that Nigeria requires restructuring and not secession. Okay. Restructuring, that's why I mentioned earlier on that if we have a good government that is delivering the dividends of good governance and the dividends of democracy, I will not see Nigerians from the East wanting to succeed. I will not see Nigerians from the West wanting to succeed. Neither would we want those in the South or Midwest or the North want to succeed. All we want is good governance that can deliver, good infrastructures, develop the country, provide the needs, the basic needs of the Nigerian people. Let Nigeria develop that standard that she can take her place amongst committee of nations of the world. For goodness sake, Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the planet
world.
Earth, with
Yes.
200 million people and still counting. Why would we be in the position that we're in as the poverty capital of the world? So what is making us to assume that status need to be eradicated? It needs to be changed. And that's bringing about good governance. Good governance we're talking about is having people who can do the right things up there. So I made mention earlier, and you referred to those, or many in government today are people who were also, diasporas. I agree. But it's unfortunate and very shameful that these people who found themselves in this part of the world, you see what's prevalent, you see what's good for the people, you see the functionality of government, and then you go back home, you have the same opportunity to replicate something in your environment, in your community, in the wider society, and you fail to do it. You swear your face as though it's none of your business. Shame on you, Nigerian politician, the diaspora Nigerian who went home to practice politics, and you failed to do the needful for the people. Shame on you. So going forward, I said there's a tiny line between.
Let me quickly identify one thing before we go ahead. There are some Nigerians in diaspora right now who are very supportive of the politicians in Nigeria because they are planning to run for any position, and they need the help of the politicians on ground in order for their ambition to be fulfilled in the country. So these are the people who don't want to criticize the politicians. They just cover up whenever they see the dirty work of the politicians. They cover up for them. But they live in the West. I've come,
Those are not the kind of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Sorry,
So we
those
have
are not
to
the
be
kind
real.
of people that
We
we
have
need.
just,
Those are not the
okay,
kind
but
of
they are
people
still
we need.
Nigerians. They are still Nigerians.
We're not saying they're not
tomorrow,
We're not
these
saying they're
people,
not Nigerians. We're
so
saying they're not Nigerians.
these people are most likely to go back to Nigeria and be occupy positions, political positions in the country. We have seen many like that. Many like that. So if we continue to believe in the West and join like that parable that says if you can't be there, you join them. So that type of a system, which means we are not moving forward. So I just want to chip in that information. You can go ahead, sir, with the restructuring.
Thank you. So, the restructuring is one. Before I go into that bit, let me just quickly tidy this bit up about the diaspora Nigerian. For instance, you will go home, contest election because you want to be empowered by those people. You don't want to condemn. You don't want to be seen condemning.
Criticize. You don't want to criticize.
Yeah, you don't want to condemn. You don't want to criticize the ills that they are perpetrating on the people, on the society.
Thank you.
Listen, that is not the way forward. You see, the set of Nigerians I'm talking about, if you look at this NSAS thing that's just happened, it tells you that the average Nigerian, okay, the Nigerian youth, and those elderly ones who cares to join in, because this protest embodies, it cuts across ages in Nigeria. Why you have the ones who are in government still making things bad and difficult in Nigeria, you still have people, some, even in government, supported SARS protest. I saw some members of National Assembly. I saw some governors, okay, who supported the SARS protest. Now, what I'm talking about here is if we have this massive involvement, massive support for NSARS, it means this set of Nigerians are Nigerians who have woken up from slumber. They are Nigerians who believe that things need to change. They are Nigerians who believe that Nigeria needs to be moved to the next level. So that said, if peradventure, this NSARS thing does not achieve the ultimate objective, overall objective, I tell you, this is a rude awakening for us, for you, for me, and for every other Nigerian out there, particularly those who identified with this NSAS protest, that saw that there were things wrong in the Nigerian political structure, in the Nigerian government, that things need to change. That same mind that brought you out to this protest to be involved in it, for how far or how long it lasted, I'm saying to you right here and now, the Nigerian people, these same people now need to get started, because we say we're in a democratic dispensation now. The only way to take away bad government, to end bad government, if we cannot sustain this peaceful protest because of the hoodlums they have brought in to infiltrate it, that we cannot do it tomorrow and then for them to be back and be part of it. And then for this government to have a reason to stop, to forcefully bring in military, bring in tanks, bring in whatever to stop the people. It is a case of a Nigeria sitting on a keg of gunpowder, which would explode in 2023. And how do we achieve that? These Nigerian people, in my opinion, we should get started right now. Come together, form a movement, form a party, form an association, whatever it may be. These same people that participated, let's use that same spirit of oneness, that same spirit of belief, that same spirit of agreement. Let us come together, form that body that we can use to present a viable representation in 2023 to take out this gerontocratic government that we have had for over 60 years, so that the vibrant, knowledgeable, intelligent, and up-to-date savvy Nigerian can assume that place and be able to work together as a team to reposition Nigeria. The time to start that is just now, not
Yes.
to wait till that time. It's just now. Okay, and in doing that, why we will not need to rely on any politician to sponsor us that will be answerable to tomorrow is for us to begin to raise our funding from now on, no matter how small, at home and diaspora. Let's come together, put our formation in place, put the structure in place, and we can begin to build ourselves and fund, be raising the needed fund to run this election come 2023, where we can challenge the status quo and perhaps get ourselves in that position. That's my
Yeah.
take on that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. In order for us to achieve this goal, we have to come together collectively in one voice. And we should do away with this idea of tribalism. For me, I see tribalism as a barrier to the success of reforming the system. Because in Nigeria, we cannot deny the reality of tribalism in the country. When we say Edo State, what happened recently in Edo State is because when you look at Edo State, you see Edo people, the Benin people, the Asian people, we're almost the same. So that is why we were able to speak in one voice. But in Nigeria, the way some tribal groups are very tribalistic and everything, don't you think that will also be a kind of a barrier for
That's
the
what we're
success?
talking about. That's what we're talking about. This NSAS thing is a big eye opener for you and I, for all Nigerians, both those who were for and NSAS protest. We all found that with one voice we can speak. NSAS brought millions of Nigerians together. Those who are apolitical, they keyed into the NSAS protest. Those who are non-politicians keyed into the NSAS protest. The Benin man, Edo man, Hausa, Fema, Isha, Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, everybody keyed into the NSAS protest. I want to agree with you that the issue of tribalism is there, but I think this NSAS protest cuts across tribe. Okay? Which means there are elements of us who believe that we can unite and achieve one common goal, detribalize ourselves, and focus on a common agenda. That would be good. Yes.
Detribalize ourselves. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay? That would be good for us. That is one of the things that I picked from this answer. The old, the young, the tribal president, whatever, they threw all those things away. And we all sang a hymn from the same hymn book. NSAS, NSAS, NSAS. The next thing was to end bad governance. And then they infiltrated with hoodlums and brought in their army, brought it and shoot people and all of that just for them to regain control.
But at the beginning of the NSAS protest, people were questioning the Northerners that they are not participating in this movement. But later on, it picked up in the northern region of Nigeria. I think right now, the Northerners are also protesting for the NSAS. So, which means we can detribalize ourselves, like what we just said now. That's the only way we can restructure Nigeria. It's very important. We should do away with this tribal. This politician is from my place. We speak the same language. All those type of. We should do away with tribalism. Then we can restructure Nigeria.
I totally agree. Because we must first of all recognize the Nigerianness in us before we look at for instance, I'm an Edo man. I'm from Benin, Edo, the cradle of Black civilization, the heartbeat of Nigeria first, the cradle of Black civilization, the eye opener to the Black world. I'm a proud Edo man, and I love Edo for that. So for me, for Nigeria to move forward, it is important for me to now bring the Nigerianness in me first and put my donors, put it aside for us to
Right.
achieve that common national objective. The
Mm.
same thing should apply to the Hausa man from the northerner, the easterner, the westerner, other south. The same thing should apply to us for us to achieve this common objective. That detribalization is very, very fundamental. It's very, very important for us to achieve this. After all, one other thing that would have been an impediment is language, but we speak a common language. All of us, they speak Pidgin English. Okay,
Yes.
with Pidgin English, we can communicate. We are
It's,
not looking for Swahili now for the whole of Africa.
for
We are talking about
interpretation.
Pidgin
Yeah.
English, which
Mm.
is already existing amongst us. So, tribe language is not there. Is a good achievement. Now, what we want to see is be nationalistic. Let's look at us as Nigerians who want to achieve great things for Nigeria, who want to make Nigeria great. Like
It's,
Obaseki wants to make Edo great again. Let's make Nigeria great again. Let the Nigerianness in us come forward, and then we can achieve so much more along those lines.
yeah. If we can, yes, just like what we did in Edo State recently, that Edo citizens in diaspora, for the first time, I can say, the first time that we came out collectively, in one, speaking in one voice to reform this idea of godfatherism in the state. We can as well do the same thing to restructure Nigeria. What we
Very
need
correct.
in Nigeria right now is restructuring. Restructuring. Secession will not solve anything because when you look at the leaders, the political leaders in the country, corruption is not only concentrated in one part of Nigeria. It's
Not at
not.
all.
Yeah,
Not at
yeah.
all.
So even though we separate, I guarantee you will see the same problem we are going to be experiencing. In most cases, governors of states, they are from your own tribal group, like Obaseki. Obaseki is from Edo State, it's an Edo man. So if, for instance, we separate from Nigeria, Obaseki is an Edo man. If he was bad before the separation, he will continue to be bad after the separation. You understand that? It's continuing to be bad after the separation. So separation, secession, agitation going on will not change anything. What we need in Nigeria right now is restructuring. And it's not going to be easy for this protest that's going on right now in order for us to achieve our goals. But we should continue, especially what you just said that the tribalization, we should always speak in one voice. I guarantee.
That's vital. And then now we're gliding into the need for restructuring. It's
Mm-hmm.
now agreed that we need restructure. Nigeria need to be restructured.
Mm.
Nigeria need to be restructured in order to move forward.
Okay.
Before the young ones or before the 2023, when we have a complete change, which we believe would happen if we start to articulate ourselves and put our acts together right now. Now, talking about restructuring, in terms
Yes.
of restructuring, there are very stringent measures that would need to be put in place and be adopted. If we look at the restructuring, the national confab that came up with restructuring as a solution to the Nigerian problem, they looked at some very key things. If you look at issues about resource control, that is very, 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 very vital. It's very, very important. Okay.
Resource control, like the
Yes,
decentralization that we were
yes, we
discussing.
touched on earlier on, but let's narrow it down now to the actual resources that we want to identify along those lines. For so many years, I remember back in 1978 when we have OFN, Operation Feed the Nation. By President, the head of state, Olusegun Obasanjo. We had prior to that we had a lot that agriculture had done for us. And then in the advent of oil, we sort of forgot about all other resources, natural resources that we have in the country. Oil became the mainstay for the Nigerian economy. And for so many years, this has been the case, the breadwinner for the Nigerian economy. And if you go to the south part of Nigeria, the environment is so degraded, okay, and it's so bad. A lot has been amassed from that part of the country. Okay, when we talk about this resource control, as I mentioned earlier on, you have the derivation policy, which I think Babangida also brought on board. That derivation policy was what took away the strength and the control of these resources by the people from where this resource comes from. In South Africa, for instance, 13% derivation policy is what's being implemented right now, compared to it was implementation policy prior to that. 13% derivation policy. So the federal government gets 100% of what comes from the crude oil that comes from the southern part of Nigeria. Okay, and the hand of the federal government, for which they make allocation to all other states in the nation. The unfairness and the injustice there is the fact that if you look at the South, for instance, you look at when the Nigerian state was in a regional state, okay, one of the regions, they were all equal regions back then, before the Midwest came in 1963 to make the fourth region. Following the creation of states, the successive creation of states, one of those regions today has 19 states, which is the northern region. Has 19 states. The West, I think, has 7, East has 6, then the Midwest has 2. So at the end of the day, how does that bring about fairness? And this region that has 2, the mass majority of these resources comes from this part of the country. Whereas of the 87%, the majority of that goes to those 19 states in the northern region that brings no resources. Okay, so the issue of resource control need to be addressed, and that's one of the recommendations from National Confab, that there need to be a revisit to the issue of resource control in the country, and that also leads to the issue of fiscal federalism. What we have at the moment is what is denying states of some of the benefits that they would have to develop their own parts, their own states, or where they are in the world, in the country. Okay, they don't have access to that. They don't have control to that, because everything streams from the top to bottom. Okay, that was another thing that was recommended from by the National Confab as part of the restructuring agenda that will help Nigeria to move forward. And also, you talk about devolution of powers, which is also another factor that was recommended by the National Confab, to have power dissolved from that federal level, so that, for instance, let's look at the police that's brought about this whole problem that we're having in Nigeria, the NSAS. The NSAS is just an arm of the Nigerian police force. Okay, so when they talk about devolution of powers and where the federal government controls the police, there has been a lot said. You have the federal government controlling the police, and you bring a DIGP, Deputy Inspector General of Police, from the north, for instance. You bring him to come and preside over those states and other regions in the southern part of Nigeria, where we have a huge cultural difference, where they don't know how we function. They don't know the kind of respect we give to our monarch. They don't know how to manage the affairs of the local indigenes. Okay, all they just come is bring federal laws to come and implement. That does not work. Okay, a situation where we have that devolution of power, where you empower the various states to own their own police. Police is supposed to be local to the people. A police structure that is local, understands the needs and the problems of the people. That way they can be able to consult and confer and be able to proffer solutions to these problems in these places. But a situation where we have now, where everything is at the federal level and it streams down to the state level, it's a problem. So there was that recommendation to have a devolution of power. Okay.
And what you just said now, after the shooting at Lekki Toge the other day, governor of Lagos State was saying that the military is not under his control, that is under the control of the federal government, and the military, the armies were ordered to open fire on the protesters. And the state governor has no power to control the military.
That is the problem.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the problem. The same thing happened in Edo State in they just recently concluded election. There are a couple of times that the governor's campaign envoy were attacked by hoodlums, by thugs, and himself as the chief security officer of the state could not do anything. When he
yes,
was embarrassed at the Oba's palace, he could not do anything. When the 14 XY elected members of the State House of Assembly, invaded the House of Assembly wanting to take over, the governor was there handicapped. He could not mobilize the police
yeah,
as the chief security officer of the state to stem that ugly tide. So what
yes,
exactly are we then talking about? What do we want to achieve with all of this? But the
exactly.
way forward, it was part of recommendation for the restructuring by the National Confab, to have these powers devolved so that the local states can have power of their own to maintain law and order and protect lives and properties. So that is very, very vital and very important as well.
So we are,
Okay.
like what I was saying the other day, that we are just praying that the federal government
Is that the borders were open to come into the Nigerian space. As we speak, they parade themselves. They are all hidden in bushes and terrorizing the people. Some acting as Fulani headsmen and killing people, maiming people, destroying farmlands, and all of that is happening already. That is an invasion. The people are there scared to death to say or do nothing, anything to protect themselves, and the state government cannot even do anything to protect the people.
sir,
That is a problem. It's a big problem.
you know what happened a few years ago? Nasiru Arufai publicly, on a national TV, telling Nigerians that the federal government offered financial compensation to Fulani herdsmen who were terrorizing and killing innocent civilians in the region. And they also extended the financial compensation to Fulani herdsmen from other neighboring countries such as Niger, Cameroon, and others. And he was calling onto the Fulani herdsmen in Niger, neighboring countries, to please come to Kaduna to collect their financial compensation. When we have the judicial system, why do we have the prison system? Why do we have police? The video is there. The governor of Kaduna himself on national TV telling Nigerians that, the money is not from the budget of the state, that the federal government offered the funds to compensate those who were killing. And the only way we can solve this problem in Nigeria is to compensate them, beg them, please do not kill my people. Take this money, do not kill my people.
My heart just bleeds. My heart just bleeds, when we hear things like that. And in the same vein, the victims of these Fulani herdsmen, the victims who have lost their loved ones, are left in their own agony. Nothing has been done. Nothing has been done to support these victims' family. Okay, here you are. You have this extension of maybe palliative now. Let's put it that way, from the Kaduna State governor, as you mentioned, to these Fulani men. And I also heard from some quarters, I stand corrected, that some of these people are to be sent abroad for some sort of training.
No, that one is different. That one is, it was a bill brought to the House by one of the northern leaders that the Fulani, the Boko Haram members, the repented Boko Haram members should be sent abroad for a kind of a foreign education. Rehabilitation. So they said they need rehabilitation. The rehabilitation also includes sending them abroad for foreign education. Maybe they were planning to send them to Harvard University or something. We were not.
This is all just so sickening. Okay. Can I just remind you that Back in time, I was doing a radio program, and we had when the advent of this Boko Haram thing, and we're looking at what Boko Haram means. It was actually a movement against Western education.
Yes.
So this same Western education is what you want to send this Boko Haram
Haram to go get.
to go and acquire same Western education. Isn't that so stupid of
The
what's going
word
on
Boko
in our
Haram,
society?
the word Boko Haram in Hausa or Fulani, I'm not sure, Hausa means foreign education, Western education is forbidden. Boko
Exactly.
Haram. That is the
You know,
definition of Boko Haram in Hausa language. Western education is forbidden. So now they were planning to rehabilitate Boko Haram repentance. They said the repentance by sending them abroad for foreign education. So that's Nigeria.
that's just a state of confusion that it spells a set of people who do not know what they want, neither they know what they're doing. It's a shame, a big shame. The state government said that's not coming from the state, it's coming from the federal
It's
government,
a federal government. It says
which means this is what's happening from the federal government stables. In the same vein, you have a scheme or proposition in place to construct railway system from Nigeria to Niger, where Nigeria, within the Nigerian society, we have no good motorable roads. We have no good, effective, functional railway system. We have locomotive train acquired in trillions of naira or billions of naira to come and apply our railway system, right? And then you do not have the viable infrastructure to serve the needs of the average Nigerian people. Yet you want to construct a railway system from Nigeria to Niger. What is the connection? What is the
it's,
economic benefit to
it's
the
still
Nigerian
this
people and the Nigerian
it's
nation?
it's still this Niger Fulanis that they were calling to come to Nigeria and collect their financial compensation and stop killing innocent civilians in the region. Okay.
So what is it? What is the connection? What is the relationship that Nigeria suddenly develops with Niger at the expense of the Nigerian people at home? Anyway, moving forward, as part of the further recommendation in terms of restructuring Nigeria, but I think it cannot be far-fetched. As part of getting things right and putting the right things in place, it's important that we begin to think and strategize on the way forward now, even if the NSAS protesting is undergoing whatever strategic reformation, whatever it is. We must also begin to put our acts together and begin to think actively on our participation in the change of power come 2023. As I said earlier on, that should not be swept under the carpet. Also, part of the recommendation by the National Confab, if I remember correctly, was that our legislature, the National Assembly, they should be part-time. Okay, they have no business being there every day, sitting in the hallowed chamber or the Senate or whatever, just deliberating something that does not bring benefit to the Nigerian society or the Nigerian economy. So the recommendation was that these people be part-time National Assembly members. They'll be part-time, perhaps remunerated or compensated on a pay-as-you-go basis. If you sit so time, you'll be paid for coming to sit and deliberate on certain bills. And if you don't sit, you are not paid anything. Okay, because the money, Nigeria's National Assembly is the most expensively run National Assembly in the whole wide world, according to research. Okay, that should not be allowed to happen where Nigerians are languishing in abject poverty. Okay, so the breakdown that I read a few weeks ago was, the money you pay a senator in a month, if you split that into four, for instance, or five, you will be able to pay about four people 90,000 naira a month for 200 Nigerians. create a job that can pay them every month. And the other was they will be able to pay 92,000 naira a month for another 150 people or thereabout, the salaries of senators and members of House of Representatives. We don't. We should not be expending so much in running the National Assembly. Okay, as was recommended, they should become part-time legislators. They should become part-time legislators. They be compensated when they sit to deliberate on bills, as and when. So not a case of a recycled day in day out thing, and then a huge budget is voted to cater for these people as by way of emolument. So that was another one that was also
Part of the
recommended.
demands.
And if you look at the democratic the election process in Nigeria as well, we don't have a chance for, like we said earlier on, people who come and to contest elections, the issue of godfatherism, they are sponsored by people who have the money. Okay, but there is no room for an independent candidate, because when somebody sponsors you and you win, you become answerable first to that person.
Exactly.
Okay, but if you are able to contest on the basis of as an independent candidate, you are not answerable to anybody, but you are answerable to people who elected you into power. Okay, so that was also recommended that should be enshrined in the part of the restructuring agenda to
So,
introduce independent candidacy.
okay, so that the person will not have a kind of a political party. The
Yes, you don't
person
have
will
a
not be
political party. You
okay,
can
will
just
not
be
be
an
running
independent
on. Okay, yeah, independent.
independent candidate.
But independent candidates, they still need a kind of a godfather that will support them. You know, the system in Nigeria, we have to practicalize, what is going on in Nigeria, put it into practice,
Well, the
So,
issue the issue the issue
yeah,
of godfatherism, I
eh,
think, to a large extent, His Excellency Godwin Nogase Obaseki
mm,
has been able to, dismantle that,
dismantle.
dismantle it, and it's only going to be eradicated as a matter of time, because the high and mighty have all fallen, and we don't see many of them around anymore. But that said, I think the issue of godfatherism in
Yeah.
another light, because in all parts of the world, as some people have argued,
Mm,
you probably still have that, but not in the way and manner that we practice it in
mm,
Nigeria, in
Nigeria.
Africa. Okay? It is the impunity with which godfatherism is practiced that is the biggest problem. Because you are there as a godfather, you want a half of the allocation to the state to be given to you. You want to be at the beck and call of the governor. You want the governor to be answerable to you. You want to be a determinant of 50-60% of the cabinet of the governor. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, indirectly, you are the one still ruling or governing the state or the local government, whatever it is. So all of that is what don't need to be, because if you really mean well for your people, perhaps you supported somebody to get to office to deliver the deliverables of dividends of democracy and good governance. You will not be there asking, trying to maneuver and manipulate that person while he's in office. You give him the free hand, to do what he has to do. Like I said, Governor Baseki probably didn't know that's how governance was.
So,
But when he
yeah.
stepped in there, he
Mm,
now realized that that
yeah.
is not
Not a
the
politician.
picture that was painted to him. He feels he's a just man who wants to do the will of the people, and that's why he decided to toe the line he did, because he felt that it cannot be business as usual. There's no way he was going to, besides, people say he wasn't a politician, but I say he's not a technocrat and a politician put
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
So he's been able to amalgamate all that, and then to bring about dividends of democracy and change things from the way it used to be. The most difficult thing for humanity is change. People don't want to change. They don't want things to change. But if you're able to change from bad to good, trust me, you will benefit from it. You would enjoy it, which seems to be the case that's happening in Edo State. So that said, issue of people having godfather, maybe it cannot be totally eradicated, but Maybe
Exactly. That's
the way they practice it, the way
yeah.
they want such a person to be answerable to them. Invariably, the whole local government they are administering to be answerable to them, the whole state that they are governing to be answerable to them, or the senatorial district that they are
Yeah.
representing to be answerable to them. That is what's bad in it. Give
Bad.
them the free
Yeah.
hand. Give them the free
Exactly.
hand to do what they want to do for people. If
Yeah.
it's good, if you are the good-minded person, that goodness will also extend to you, and people would appreciate you for it.
Exactly. It's true that in order for you to succeed, to strive in the political sphere of Nigeria, at least you need the backing of a well-grounded politician in the country. However, that does not justify them to be playing this role of godfatherism like what happened in Edo State. Yeah, it's clear here that okay, we need the help of a well-grounded politician in Nigeria in order for you to succeed. You need someone to fund your campaign. You don't have to be a godfather like what Adam Soshomole did in Edo State. So
But at the
yeah,
end of the day, what was the outcome? Because Obaseki, he
mm,
didn't fund Obaseki. You know, the governor, I believe, survived on the
mm,
generality and the generousness of friends, well wishers, because people thought he was spending the state money to fund his campaign and all that. And by the 26th of September, he had already paid salaries to
mm,
pensioners, to civil servants, to all the working groups in the state. So if he spent the state money as people were alluding to, as many were also asking the question, where then did he get money from? So basically, what I'm trying to say here is, if at all you help somebody to get to government, you should not just be there to demand everything and
mm,
then make the government handicapped to deliver the needs of government for the people. So just to add to the list of recommendations, there was also recommendation that you and I, as Nigerian diaspora, we should be free to participate in elections. We should be able to vote
votes.
from wherever we are in the world. The
Mm,
fact that we are domiciled in diaspora and not in Nigeria is not enough to disenfranchise us. Some African countries are doing it. 60 years after, what does it take for us to put the necessary structure in place, to be able to achieve that and get Nigerians to vote wherever they are in the world? That is possible. It's not been a priority for any sitting government to do. There's been negotiations all across board from different quarters and bodies and organizations, but the government of the day have never heeded because they believe that it will cause a lot of upset.
money.
If
Besides
that were
that, they
to
said they cannot fund it. That will too be
come
expensive
on,
for
come
them.
on, come on. Let's not even go there. What does it cost? I mentioned earlier on, Nigeria is so blessed. We have so much, so much, enough for the Nigerian country to practice a welfare state like we're practicing here in the United Kingdom, like you are practicing there in Canada, like people are practicing in the United States of America. Nigeria has the resources. It's just misplaced and embezzled and corruption that's making things not to happen. Yet you have people that are suffering, jobless, and very, very poor. And there are some people who have more than enough that they cannot even consume, and they are happy. They have a conscience that allows them to just perpetuate that and watch their fellow Nigerians to die of hunger. That is evil. That is evil.
Mm, yeah.
So, I think those are some of the points I want to say. And
Yes.
privatization of the four refineries that we have in Nigeria was also on the list of recommendations. Because
Privatization of where?
of course, the existing oil refineries in
Mm,
Nigeria,
mm,
okay, to privatize and make them functional, beneficial to the Nigerian country. Because a situation where we have our crude, we
mm,
export outside, is refined and brought back to us, and at a very high cost. That is what is one of the things that's killing the country. That need to change. So it's also part of the recommendation
mm,
in that
mm,
restructuring agenda from the
mm,
national confab. And also that if you want to vie for the presidency of the country, your minimum educational qualification should be a university degree. We cannot
mm.
afford to have presidents who cannot read, who cannot write. We cannot afford to have presidents who cannot address a nation. let alone address the international community. That is a shame. Nigerians are educated people all around the world. It's a shame that we have a leader who cannot adequately, deliver as an intelligentsia. So part of the recommendation also was to have the minimum qualification for anybody, which today seems to be a school certificate or whatever. It should be
Graduates, a
yeah, it
graduate
should become a graduate qualification,
qualification
to contest as the president of Nigeria.
in
Okay,
Nigeria.
if we have somebody like that, at least he will have the intelligence and the psyche, to resonate with the needs of the people. That was be. I'm not saying is an end in all, but that will be an added quality,
See,
for you to
so
know and be able to distinguish from what's good and bad, and the policies that are not working. Before you get the experts to come, at least you can also think yourself rationally that this is not right, and you can arguably put the right propositions also forward for the good of the country. So I think those are very salient recommendations which will help. So in a nutshell, does Nigeria need restructuring? I say yes, we need restructuring, and some of these points that have been highlighted are necessary to ensure that we achieve that restructuring. If Nigeria is restructured, Nigeria becomes good. We have a good leadership that is delivering good governance, dividends of democracy, providing the necessary infrastructure for the average Nigerian people. Trust me, there will not be agitation for secession. There will not be protest on the street every now and again. Everybody will focus on what they are doing. Those who are not working for unpaid salaries are granted enabled environment, are granted the necessary small scale loans to establish their own businesses. Make it an enterprising economy, which will be good for all of us.
If we
These are
can
some of the
even
things that we're talking about.
if we can even get the basic necessity, electricity, steady electricity, business will strive in the country. Right now,
Obviously,
because of lack of
investors will come. If there's
investors,
security, all of that
security,
will be in abundance.
healthcare system, education. I think
So
basic
our
necessity
GDP will
first.
shoot up.
Exactly.
So
Basic necessity first. Let's just start from the basic necessity. Later on, we can reform the system there. What we need in Nigeria right now, first of all, basic necessity. And what we are demanding right now is not a problem of many countries in the world today. What we are demanding for Nigeria, because we are way
just face it.
behind. Way behind.
Yes.
Do you think that the poorest country in Africa are asking for electricity? Nigeria. We call ourselves the giant of Africa. We don't have electricity in the country.
Are we a sleeping giant? Maybe we are a sleeping giant right now.
At least basic necessity first, please, before we can
Very important.
Yes, before we can go ahead, we say, oh, we need benefits, we need child benefits, we need unemployment benefits, all those things, But first of all, basic necessity, water, electricity, healthcare system, security. We need those things first.
We are hoping and believing for a better Nigeria. It's important that we work, we talk, because no one is going to give up that government. No one is going to give up that power. That
Easily.
Power has to be taken, and for it to be taken, we need to put our hearts together. We need to come together and do the needful to announce ourselves in that political space and begin to work on doing what we need to do to be able to be part of the key decision making body in that Nigeria country.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate you for according me this opportunity for us to deliberate on issues about Nigeria. We can talk about Nigeria from today till next year. There will always be something to say about what we're clamoring for, what we're yearning for is for a good Nigeria, which is very, very possible. And for us to do that, I want to particularly say right here and now that the Nigerian youth, your time has come. Your time is now. and we must not allow this opportunity to pass us by. Let us be active participants in the political process of our country, in how we can turn the country around. The current spate of protest currently going on, yes, it's simmered down to some degree at the moment. Perhaps it's just a case of taking a back step to review and re-strategize. But the government of the day, I want to say, don't take Nigerians for fool. Don't abuse the Nigerians' intelligence. Let's stand up. Let's do the will of the people. Let's deliver good governance for the people. Nigeria is a beautiful country. Nigerians are beautiful people. Nigerians are not rebellious. Nigerians are simple people. Only if you just do what is good for them. The basic amenities that we have been clamoring for right here today on this program. Issues of power, water, healthcare, employment, poverty alleviation, addressing issues of terrorism, issues of poor education, abolishing issue of nepotism, tribalistic practices, detribalization of the current governing structure in Nigeria. Let there be fair representation. Let there be fairness. Let people have access, to government and do the things that are right. Let there be government of meritocracy, not government of geritocracy. That way we can put the right set of people in the right set of place in the right places to help to remold the Nigeria of our dreams. It is not impossible. It is not impossible. I say again, it is not impossible. It is very, very possible. Okay? If we are not set to do all of these, we have no business in being in government. Okay? Let's consider restructuring Nigeria. Let's restructure Nigeria. Let's revisit the report and recommendations from the National Confab of 2014. Let's look at it. If you say you are a leader and you care for Nigerians, you want Nigeria to be great, let's revisit that document. Let's look into it and see how we can use it to restructure, reposition Nigeria and bring about good governance. And Nigeria will be peaceful for everyone, devoid of campaigns and protests for secession or campaign and protest for division and everyone to go their own way or indeed to end Nigeria.
Yeah.
Maybe after that time we can rebrand Nigeria, because the word Nigeria, if you know what the word Nigeria means, you will not be a proud Nigeria. So let's think positively. Let's work on dealing with the first things first, and then we can address other things later. So that will be my take. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be on board your platform to articulate the things about Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
God
we'll
bless.
talk to. Yeah, God bless you too, sir. Thanks.